Good afternoon, Wealth Our Way Nation. It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform Wealth Our Way, where our motto is wealth is not only for the wealthy. I welcome each and every one of you to episode 126. This month is the home buyers workshop here at Wealth Our Way, and this week we kicked it off with the segment on first time home buyers. But before we get into today's episode, I want to practice the attitude of gratitude as always and thank each and every one of you who are live with me here as I stream across the Wealth Our Way Facebook and YouTube pages. I want to give the Wealth Our Way Nation salute to all the members of Wild Nation who watch this program pre-recorded overnight, over the weekend, wherever you can squeeze 15 minutes of financial literacy in. And then, of course, a heartfelt how are you to the good folks on the Life 101 platform who listen to the audio recording of this very here program. Yo, we kicked it off last night at the Financial Power Hour with the brother Mike Headley. Shout out and thank you to brother Mike Headley of the Headley Real Estate Group. And we were talking about tips for first-time home buyers. So I want to close, the week out and in today's show, give you 3 gems that you need if you are a first-time home buyer, or like myself, if you qualify at first-time home buyer programs, even if you've bought a home before. So it's some very important landscape changes. And as Brother Headley said last night, we are currently in a very overheated seller's market, which means that a lot of the tips that we've been told in the past on what to do when we're buying a home, they're not in our favor right now as a home buyer. There's not a lot of negotiating with sellers that you can do. There's not a lot of sharing of closing costs like you were told you could do in the past. So I want to give you 3 gems that work regardless of whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market to help you get ready for home buyers, for first-time home buying. I'm also, as I always seem to be able to do, want to share a little personal information on the program. So right now I am broadcasting live from the lobby of the hotel in which I am staying. And I am staying in a hotel because my newly rented condominium is having electrical issues. As a result, I'm here while they try to fix the electric. Now, here's the thing. I was told to take 2 days. I've been here for 6 days. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. But the reality is I am very pleased on one hand that as a tenant, as opposed to a homeowner, this is not my responsibility. The landlord is paying for me to stay at this hotel, and the landlord is responsible for getting the electricity fixed. But if I was a homeowner, I'd have my electricity fixed by now. So it's always 6 of one, half dozen of another. And we've talked on previous programs about the advantages of renting versus home ownership and home ownership versus renting. So with that being said, I want to get into the tips that every home buyer, myself, I literally talked to a realtor this morning because as I've told you on previous programs, I moved back to Georgia to buy a home, but I wanted to rent. I needed to get here quickly, make sure I established residency for my son and his school district. And now I signed a very short-term lease. I signed a 5-month lease. I have to find and close on a home in a hurry in a seller's market. So I'm grinding every day. But here's the 3 tips that I am using for myself, and I'll share with you guys. Tip number 1, the home is the largest purchase most of us will ever make in our life. It's the biggest dollar amount we will ever spend. As such, the vast majority of home buyers will need to have financing. They will need to have what is known as a mortgage, and mortgages come in all shapes and sizes and variations. So in my opinion, the most important person, the most important thing that you can focus upon when you are buying a home is getting a relationship with the proper lender. Now, lenders are not one size fits all. You can go to your credit union or bank that you have a relationship with and have that institution provide you with the mortgage. There are pros and cons on every decision. The pro to a decision like that is, especially if you bank at a credit union or a smaller bank, they know you. They're more likely to work with you, more likely to overlook certain blemishes on your credit, certain things because they know your history with the bank. The downside is you are locking yourself into one choice. You are locking yourself into one avenue from which you can get lending. The other way to go about it is to work with a mortgage broker or a mortgage lending brokerage service that will go across the country and find you the best offerer of a mortgage, whether it's a bank, a credit union, a private lending company, companies that are set up solely to lend money for mortgages, you will have the flexibility to go into any of these lenders without leaving your home because you have somebody running point trying to find you these mortgages. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of that. The pro is what I just said. You have one person looking around the nation to find you the best lenders, find you the best programs, and you don't have to know a whole lot about that process. The con is you're hiring somebody to do something on your behalf. Two things: you got to pay them, so it's a cost involved in it that you may not have at your bank or credit union. And two, it's an old saying that when you sit across the table from somebody who knows more than you may not have as much money as you do when you get up as when you sat down. So when you're working with a professional who knows their business better than you know their business, there can be unjust fees, unjust transactions that you don't have the aptitude to keep up with. And that's why you tune into programs like 15 Minutes of Finance and the Financial Power Hour, where we try to unearth these possibilities. And next week, we will have mortgage professional extraordinaire Elizabeth Liz Paris on the show to talk all things home buying financing. So the second thing I say, after you secure your financial professional to help you, your lending professional, is to actually get a realtor. So there's so many apps, and I'm guilty of it. I found a home this morning on Trulia. I see them on Zillow. I see them on Realtor.com. The reality is that we can do some of the footwork and homework and legwork ourselves by finding houses. But in my humble opinion, once you have done your research and you found the house that you like on an app, you then need to work with a real estate professional who can take the reins over from there. Once again, this is what I do for a living right here: financial services, financial planning. I don't have time to learn the entire home buying business and mortgage business and dedicate all the hours that are required. I want a professional to do that. I'm willing to compensate a professional for doing that. So this morning when I saw a home on Trulia, I called the realtor that I'm working with down here. I sent her the text of the home. It's very easy to copy it from Zillow and send it to her. And now we will go through the process of looking at that house because she's now on top of it. So lending professional, real estate professional. The other reason you want to have a realtor, some people don't use realtors, some people use a lawyer, a real estate attorney. I've never went that route, but I've had clients who have went that route. The reason you want to use a real estate professional is, once again, this is the single biggest transaction you're ever going to partake in financially. You're going to end up signing. I normally get writer's cramps when I'm at a real estate closing because there are so many documents. There's so many elements, from appraisals to title to insurance to deeds. There's so many different things and so many different entities that you are going to deal with that are over your head. So you need to hire someone who is well versed in handling these issues day in, day out. So number one, getting a lending professional that suits your needs. Lending two, getting a real estate professional that suits your needs. Now, the third one is all on you. The third one you can do yourself. The third one is making sure that you're ready to be a home buyer. There are several things that need to be taken into consideration. Do you have enough money to buy a home? Although there are programs that are 100% financing, meaning you don't have to pay any down payment, you still have closing costs. You still have the cost of moving. It was very expensive for me to move, and I didn't move a lot of things, but to move from New Jersey to Georgia cost me money that I had to have. Do you have money to furnish your place? Also, side note on furnishing, I fortunately have the money to do a lot of things that I seek out to do, but money does not solve every problem in the world. When I came down here and got my place, I needed to sleep. Fortunately, I was able to order some of the stuff before I got here, and it was at my door when I arrived. But there were other pieces of furniture that I need that I went to major stores: Ashley Home Store, Macy's Furniture, Raymore and Flanagan, and they had nothing. Supply chain issues are very, very real now. So I ended up using a company, and I'll give them a plug here because they came through for me, called American Freight. Truthfully, they're the type of company that I would think my mom bought our furniture from when I was growing up. It's not necessarily the standard that Big Tank is used to these days. However, they had it. And at the end of the day, I needed furniture immediately. I didn't have the opportunity to wait on furniture. So because my place is relatively small, like I said, it's a condominium, I was okay with getting furniture that I may not think is up to my standards. And when I'm done and move into my house and get the more upscale furniture, I can either give this furniture away or put it in areas of my home that won't be heavily populated. Like the home I'm going to buy will probably have a downstairs terrace level with extra rooms in it. This furniture could go in one of those rooms. So are you prepared for these other costs? Have you done your homework on what type of house you want to be in? There's an old saying in real estate that you're better off buying the cheapest house in the best neighborhood than the most expensive house in the worst neighborhood, because real estate goes up in value when you're in good neighborhoods with good schools. And you want to make sure that you buy in a neighborhood where people take care of their homes, where the school districts will educate your children properly. Because even if you don't have children, most likely when you sell your home, you'll be selling it to someone who has children, and they'll be concerned about the school district. So it is always better to buy less house in a nicer neighborhood than more house in a lower income neighborhood. And that's regardless of what your income level is. If you are on the lower end of the income scale and you're buying houses, you would still don't go outside of your reach and buy into a slightly suburban house and, be paying more for the house and, going into the city and buying a house that may be a little more expensive, but you're not going to get the appreciation because you're not in a good neighborhood. I stumbled over my words a little bit there. But at the end of the day, I see a lot of people move into neighborhoods where they are looking to buy the most expensive house in the neighborhood or the nicest house in the neighborhood. And I tell them, you want to be in a better neighborhood. And if you don't have the nicest house, you can always do things like decorate, landscape to make your house more attractive. Even buying houses, and this is something that Liz will get into next week, buying houses with programs that allow you to fix them up. In this market where houses are going for top dollar, even houses that need a lot of repairs, you would probably get the best bang for your buck buying a home that may need some renovations. And as a result, you are able to get a little bit lower than market price, pay for your own repairs, and end up with a value in the neighborhood. So I think that when we look at being a first-time home buyer, which I am now, I just called the realtor this morning. I'm working already with a mortgage lender. We're getting pre-qualified. We're making sure we have a pre-approval letter before we go to see any home. My credit, and everybody knows I talk about this on the show all the time. I filed bankruptcy when I got divorced 7 years ago, and that still hangs on my credit. But from the minute I filed bankruptcy, I started rebuilding my credit, and I have not missed any payments. I don't overutilize my credit. So my credit score is actually very good for someone who filed bankruptcy 7 years ago now. So you need to check your credit. And something that Brother Headley said last night, I'm sure Liz will say next Wednesday, once you start the mortgage process, your mindset has to be focused solely on this home. You can't go using your credit card for dinner or paying down payments for vacation or even pre-buying your furniture. Your credit needs to stay exactly the way it is when it starts the process up until you get to that closing table, because any deviation from that credit that credit report, that credit situation will negatively affect your ability to buy that home. So keep that in mind, and we'll talk about that more next Wednesday on the Financial Power Hour. So those are the 3 tips. Find a lender that will best suit your needs. Find a real estate professional, and then make sure you have your mind right and that the things that you can control, you are controlling and doing the best that you can do. So with that in mind, I want you guys to have a great weekend. I'll be back here next Tuesday for 15 Minutes of Finance, where we will move into all things lending for home buyers. We will have Liz Paris on the show next Wednesday for the Financial Power Hour. I want you guys to always remember, wealth is not only for the wealthy. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.